In a typical history class, Anna Carter just wanted to learn the truth. But when she dared to speak out the truth in front of her teacher, she never expected that it would lead to her suspension and the risk of being expelled from school. Was this the price for bravery? Have you ever dared to stand up for the truth, only to face punishment in return? What would you do if someone decided you didn't deserve to speak out just because you were different? Let's follow the story of Anna Carter, a girl who stood up to face injustice in her own school. On Monday morning, sunlight streamed through the classroom windows at Westwood High, casting a golden glow on the old wooden desks. The slow, creaky sound of the ceiling fan could be heard, signaling that something was about to happen. Anna Carter sat in the second row, idly fiddling with her pen, her eyes fixed on the blackboard in front. She could sense that something felt different about the atmosphere in class today. Everything seemed normal, the soft scratch of pencils, the quiet whispers. But there was a subtle tension in the air. Only those who had felt it before could recognize. Above the teacher's desk, Ms. Jessica held a piece of chalk, drawing bold strokes on the board. The words appeared clearly and confidently, like an unassailable declaration. Civil rights movement brought us all to equality. At that moment, Anna felt a wave of emotion rising within her chest. A feeling of anger, outrage, a blatant lie. She stared at the white letters against the blackboard, her palms starting to tighten around her pen. Ms. Jessica placed the chalk down, brushed her hands lightly, and turned to face the class. This is one of the greatest achievements in American history. Thanks to people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, everyone now has equal opportunities, regardless of race, gender, or background. A few students nodded in agreement, but Anna did not. She knew better than that. Inside her, a fire erupted. She could no longer stay silent. Ms. Jessica, that's not true. The class immediately fell silent. The whispers faded, replaced by a suffocating stillness. A few students turned to glance at Anna, some holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Ms. Jessica, who had been about to step to her teacher's desk, paused. A thin smile flickered on her lips, a cold smile, devoid of warmth. Why do you say that, Anna? Her voice was soft but sharp, like a knife cutting through the air. Anna lifted her head, took a deep breath, feeling the eyes of the entire class on her. But she was unshaken. Because there is still racism in society. Just because the laws have changed doesn't mean everyone has equal opportunities. If we truly had equality, why are black students like me suspended more often? Why are we judged more harshly? Why are we denied entry into honors classes more frequently? Numbers don't lie. A ripple of murmurs spread through the class. Some students raised their eyebrows, others exchanged glances. In the corner of the room, Jordan, a popular white student, quietly crossed his arms, a look of amusement in his eyes, as though waiting for the drama to unfold. Ms. Jessica stood tall, but her expression had shifted. Her eyes narrowed slightly, a flash of discomfort flickering across her face. But her voice remained calm, as if speaking to a child who didn't understand. Anna, you're disrupting the class. No, I just want us to learn the truth. A few giggles came from the back of the room. A student whispered, "Here comes the drama." Ms. Jessica closed her eyes for a moment, as if trying to regain her composure. When she opened them again, she tilted her head, her voice slower and sharper than before. "If you can't respect my lesson, you should leave the class immediately." The classroom fell into absolute silence. Anna could feel her body tense up. She could hear her heartbeat pounding in her chest. "Are you kicking me out of class just because I spoke the truth?" Her voice didn't tremble. Ms. Jessica slowly folded her arms. "I don't have time to argue with you, Anna. Get out now." In that moment, Anna realized she had no choice. She could stay silent, endure, and pretend to agree with the lie. Or she could stand up and hold her head high. She chose the latter. Anna took a deep breath and slowly packed her books. The class remained silent. No one spoke up in her defense. A few averted their eyes. Others looked at her with sympathy. As she walked out of the room, hand on the door handle, she turned back and stared straight into Ms. Jessica's eyes. "Thank you for today's lesson, Ms. Jessica. It taught me more than your lecture ever could." Then she pushed the door open and stepped out, leaving behind a room filled with silence. The door closed with a heavy click, a final punctuation. But for Anna, this was just the beginning. A few hours later, Anna sat silently in the principal's office, her hands gripping the armrest. In front of her was a file marked suspension. 3 days in bold letters. The cold words felt like a knife slicing into her pride. The room was large but stifling, the pale yellow light casting shadows on the dark wood desk where Principal Mr. Reynolds sat opposite her. On either side of him were Ms. Jessica, her history teacher, and a representative from the school board. Their faces showed no anger, just a fake calmness, as if they were making an obvious decision, one that couldn't be questioned. The door swung open. Darius Carter entered, tall, with sharp features and deep eyes filled with an undercurrent of storm. His gray suit fit perfectly, exuding the presence of a man who could make the entire room pay attention as soon as he entered. Without saying a word, he pulled a chair and sat next to his daughter. His eyes quickly scanned the suspension letter, the words challenging him silently. Then his face darkened. "This isn't just a suspension." His voice was deep, every word emphasized like a hammer pounding on stone. "They want to expel her." Anna froze. "What?" She nearly leapt out of her chair, her heart pounding in her chest. "They can't do that." "But they are," Darius replied, his eyes still fixed on Principal Reynolds. "And I won't let it happen." Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the meeting. "Mr. Carter, I understand your feelings, but Anna disrupted the class, disrespected the teacher, and caused instability in the school. We have no other choice." Darius smirked, but there was no humor in it. "No other choice? You mean you don't want to have other choices?" Mr. Reynolds looked uncomfortable but kept his calm voice. "Westwood High strives to maintain a peaceful learning environment. We cannot allow a student to incite conflict in the classroom." Anna gritted her teeth, her anger rising. "Incite conflict? I was just speaking the truth. If the truth makes people uncomfortable, then the problem lies with the system, not me." Ms. Jessica interjected, her voice sweet like honey, but sharp like a razor. "Anna, we're not saying you're wrong. But there are better ways to express your opinions. You need to learn how to respect the teacher and the classroom." "Respect?" Darius laughed, this time truly a bitter laugh. "You mean the kind of respect that involves staying silent and accepting injustice? Because if that's your definition, then I'm sorry, my daughter was raised to ask questions, to fight for what's right, not to bow her head." The atmosphere in the room was tense, like a tightly strung bowstring. Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat and pushed a file across the table toward Darius. "You can appeal if you wish. But we've made our decision." Darius didn't blink. "Thank you, but I'm not begging. I'm informing you that I won't allow this decision to stand." He pulled out his phone and quickly dialed a number. "Nina, prepare the official complaint and contact the press." Anna's eyes widened. Ms. Jessica's expression changed slightly. Mr. Reynolds furrowed his brow. "What are you doing, Carter?" Darius slid his phone into his pocket and leaned back in his chair. "I just want to make sure that if Westwood High wants to expel a student for speaking the truth, the whole city will know about it." Silence. Ms. Jessica clenched her fists. Mr. Reynolds sighed, and Anna. For the first time during this meeting, she smiled. 1 week later, the school board held an emergency meeting. The tension in the room was palpable, so thick it could be felt. The rows of seats were packed with the principal, teachers, parents, civil rights organization representatives, and even a few students who came to witness the showdown. The wooden door was shut tight, separating the room from the world outside, but couldn't block the murmurs from within. At the center of the room, Darius Carter stood tall, his sharp gaze like a man about to deliver a decisive blow in a major trial. Before him was the board table, where Principal Reynolds sat, accompanied by key members of the school. Across from them, Ms. Jessica sat, her hands clasped together, her face tense, no longer exuding the confidence she had shown in class that day. Darius slowly opened his leather briefcase, pulled out a thick file, and slammed it onto the table. The sound of the file hitting the wood echoed through the room, making the air even more suffocating. "We have enough evidence to prove that Ms. Jessica engaged in racist behavior in her teaching." The room went silent. A few parents exchanged glances, some cleared their throats, but no one dared speak up. Principal Reynolds clasped his hands together, his eyes showing clear caution. Ms. Jessica swallowed. She could feel all eyes on her. Sweat beads appeared on her forehead, but she struggled to keep her voice steady. "I was just doing my job." Darius smirked and slowly flipped through the pages of the file. Here are letters from parents accusing Ms. Jessica of lowering the grades of black students. Tests were graded unfairly, biased comments were made, and opportunities were unjustly denied. He paused and looked around the room. Not just one student. Not just one case. This is a system. A ripple of whispers spread through the room. Some parents exchanged worried looks, as if they had suspected something but never dared to speak up. Darius continued, his voice even stronger. "These are testimonies from other students who witnessed and experienced this injustice. The comments Ms. Jessica made in class, the time she ignored questions from black students but readily helped others." Ms. Jessica clenched her teeth, her hands unconsciously gripping the edge of her skirt. She wanted to argue, to speak out, but her throat felt dry. Darius stared directly at Ms. Jessica and then pulled out a USB drive, placing it on the table. "And here's the recording of that class. We have proof." Principal Reynolds raised an eyebrow. He glanced at the USB, then turned to Ms. Jessica. The atmosphere in the room became even more suffocating. "A recording?" one of the board members repeated, his voice tinged with skepticism. Darius nodded. That day's class was recorded by a student. In this tape, Ms. Jessica not only dismisses inequality outright but also uses her power to silence students. When confronted with undeniable truths, she chose to kick Anna Carter out of the class instead of facing the issue. The room erupted into murmurs. Some parents shook their heads. Some teachers appeared uncomfortable, but no one could deny the truth that was slowly being revealed. Principal Reynolds looked at Ms. Jessica, his face growing more serious. "Miss Jessica, do you have anything to say?" Ms. Jessica opened her mouth, but no words came out. She scanned the room, realizing that no one was defending her anymore. A week ago, she could confidently stand in front of the class, smiling arrogantly as she kicked Anna out. But now, everything had changed. Finally, she spoke, her voice small and wavering. I just wanted to maintain discipline in the classroom." Darius crossed his arms, his sharp gaze fixed on her. Maintain discipline? Or suppress the voices of students who dared to speak the truth? Silence. Principal Reynolds took a deep breath, then announced to the room, "We will investigate this matter further, but I can assure you, Anna Carter will not be expelled." The room erupted into a buzz. Some parents nodded, a few even clapped quietly. Anna, sitting beside her father, felt a surge of warmth in her chest. She had fought, and today, she didn't fight alone. Ms. Jessica could no longer stay seated. She stood up, grabbed her bag, and quickly left the meeting room without looking back. Darius watched her retreating back, then turned to Anna, his expression softening. This is just the first step. Anna nodded. The battle was far from over. But at least, today, justice had a chance to speak. 1 week later, Westwood High issued an official statement. Anna Carter was reinstated in class immediately. Ms. Jessica was suspended indefinitely pending investigation. The school board committed to reviewing policies to ensure fairness in the educational environment. The notice was posted right in the middle of the main hallway, where all students and teachers could see it. The news spread like wildfire. On the school's social media, the post about the decision was flooded with lively comments. Some supported Anna, praising her courage, while others still debated. But no one could deny. Westwood High had changed. That morning, Anna walked into history class for the first time after more than a week of suspension. She stopped at the door, feeling the strange atmosphere. Normally, the class would be noisy at this time, filled with lively conversations. But today, an eerie silence enveloped the room. Then suddenly, a round of applause erupted from the back of the class. The first clap, then the second, and soon the whole class joined in. Some students even stood up, whistling in applause. A few people, those who had stayed silent when she was kicked out of class, now joined in. "You did it." Anna paused for a moment, but then smiled. She held her head high and walked confidently into the classroom. A sense of pride swelled in her chest. She hadn't just fought for herself. She had fought for other students, for those who had felt they had no voice. She walked past the rows of desks, glancing at her classmates. Some looked at her with admiration, others nodded in respect. Even Jordan, the popular white student who used to be indifferent, gave her a thumbs up. Anna sat down in her old seat. But this time, she no longer felt out of place. This time, she knew her truth had won. Anna's story is a clear testament that sometimes the truth is not easily accepted. It can be ignored, opposed, even punished. But if no one dares to stand up, injustice will continue. Sometimes, one solitary voice can create a wave of change. And Anna was no longer alone. Who do you think was right in this situation? Is it necessary to fight for a change in the current education system and create a fair school environment for everyone? If you love stories about justice, struggle, and social change, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Proud Stories channel to continue following more powerful and inspiring stories.